Welcome on into the Cam Show, powered by Rogue Media Sports Network. The NBA is trying to kill the dynasty. The thing that has really separated the league from the other leagues and other sports for years was the constant dynastic talk going on in this association. And now they don't want that anymore. They don't want the Russell Celtics. They don't want the Showtime Lakers. They don't want Jordan's Bulls. They don't want the Spurs. They don't want the Warriors. They don't want the Kobe Shaq Lakers. They're done with it. All thanks to this new CBA and the second apron. The dreaded second apron. And look, I get it. Before I get into this, let me make this clear. I get what they're going for. It's not going to reap the results that they want. Just like the last CBA, by the way, where they softened the cap. They made sure you could sign your own guys, and it didn't work the way they wanted it to as well. So we all know it's coming, that second apron, and there are a couple of teams right now, I mean pretty much all the contenders right now, that are either going to be backed up against it or over that second apron, including my Boston Celtics. They're there. And while there's been aprons in the past and certain thresholds that you had to meet, or there'd be some sort of penalty, the penalties weren't that harsh. Now they are. Because once you go over that second apron, you've got a lot of shit coming your way. Your mid-level exception, that's cut in half. The biannual exception, lose that entirely. Sign-in trades, no mas. No more of that. That was a big thing that came around the last CBA, so teams could circumvent that. Not anymore. And that luxury tax, that's gross. That is gross. Up to a 600% tax, depending on how many times you go over the second apron, which means your veteran minimum, those guys you're trying to add who are looking for rings, who are just jags, decent players, role players, that veteran minimum becomes $12 million in taxes in that 600% tax rate. And again, yeah, for those role players who are ring chasing, they're trying to find another one, and they know they've got some good basketball left in them, you can pretty much only sign them for the minimum. That's all you can do. In the buyout market, you can't do that either. You are really, really up shit's creek if you pass that second apron. And if you do it more than once in the span of 4 years, your first-round draft pick 7 years away is frozen and will drop to the bottom of the first round. So you will get the worst first-round pick no matter what, and you can't trade it. And everything you trade has to be like for like in terms of money. So all of a sudden, you're starting to get rid of your guys, your best guys, for 10 cents on the dollar, and you don't have a choice. You can't throw in cash considerations in there. You can't trade second-round picks. You're done. Man. That sucks. You know why? Because even in this era of parity, the last 6 years have garnered 6 NBA champions, 6 different champions, which is awesome. But every team but one since the last CBA, which is 2011-2012, they were all over this second apron threshold, whether it was the year they won it or the year after. So even if you're not producing multiple championships, this is the price of doing business to win in this league. And again, the NBA is known for its dynasties. The beginning of this, I just rattled off like 6 just like that, like it's nothing. Because in the last 60 years, the NBA has had 18 champions, which is like, okay, that seems about right, until you realize that the NHL, its winter sport counterpart, in the same time frame has had 22, and MLB has had 23. Because those leagues are already built to not have as many dynasties, but also it doesn't hurt the teams that are doing it the right way, which brings me to my greater point. What this is going to do is this is going to really penalize the teams that are building the franchises the way you're supposed to do. In the perfect world, this is how you do it. Because I look at the last dynasty and potentially what could be the last dynasty in the NBA for a long time, the Golden State Warriors. Tell me they didn't do it the right way? Like, yeah, they went and signed Kevin Durant. And a lot of people held that against Durant more than anything. That stunk, and that got them 2 more championships. Don't get me wrong. There's no dynasty without Kevin Durant. But you look at what they had already built. Steph Curry, drafted. Klay Thompson, drafted. Draymond Green, drafted. And later on, Andrew Wiggins, 10 cents on the dollar. Good move. They won 2 championships without Durant as well. And they did it with homegrown guys. You look at the model in this parity league that is the NBA now, those last 6 champions, they all have something in common. When you look at the second round of the Warriors after Durant, you look at Milwaukee, you look at Denver, you look at Boston. They not only drafted a superstar, they drafted 2 of them. Klay Thompson and Steph Curry. Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray. Giannis Antetokounmpo and Chris Middleton. Plus wise moves like Drew Holiday. Like this is the blueprint now. And instead of letting that continue, which is the way it was going to go with the Supermax money and the luxury tax that was already in place. Instead, now with this second apron, it doesn't really matter because you might not be able to afford both of those plus the role players they need down the line. And who it's going to hurt is maybe the Celtics. Maybe the Celtics get in a couple championships before the second apron stuff really starts to hurt them, and maybe they're the last dynasty, but I don't know that I could say that. How about a team like Oklahoma City? This is one that has done it the right way. They tanked a little bit, but they made some shrewd moves. They have acquired a ton of draft capital. They were the youngest number 1 seed in history, and their golden era, which is coming up, might not be so golden because of the rules that the league is putting in place. SGA, MVP candidate, already got a max contract. Jay Will, you're going to need one of those next year. Chet's going to need one next year. All of a sudden, that's 3 max deal guys. You can't operate in this new league like that. And that's not even talking about the guy you just traded for, Alex Caruso, or the guy you just paid a lot of money to, not max money, but a good amount of money to, in Harkenstein. How do you sustain that? Especially when you have all those draft picks that you can't trade once you go over the apron. Why are we punishing a team like that? That has scouted and developed and used good draft strategy. Why? Or even a team like the Celtics that went out and splashed some money. They drafted their 2 superstars. They made a really nice deal for Derek White to get him in the door. He deserved the money that he's got. They made shrewd moves for Drew Holiday and Kristaps Porzingis, traded guys that they had grown through their system. So why do they get punished for it? Or how about the team that Derek White came from? Why are we going to punish a team like the Spurs, who pretty expertly draft all the time? They got Kawhi in the middle of the first round. They got Derek White and DeJounte Murray at the same spot in the draft, 29. And they got their generational guy. They got Wemby. They got another top 10 pick in Sohan. They got good value on Devin Vassell. And now we're going to punish them as they are building a championship team potentially, because in a couple years it becomes a lot more muddy and the blueprint is not clear on how to do that. And I hear about how this is supposed to help the small market teams. Are San Antonio and Oklahoma City not small enough for you? Because it's not helping them. Or how about Denver? It's sure as shit not helping them. Their best role player from the championship team, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, has to walk in free agency. Denver can't afford him. They can't afford 2 max guys and their best role player. And now you're going to start to see the effects like now. Jalen Brunson taking what, $110 million less than the max? I don't care if they're giving it through his dad or not. That's a big sacrifice. You're already seeing it. Paul George, Clippers couldn't afford him because they see that luxury tax that's coming down the line if they go over the second apron and how screwed their franchise is going to be. Philly's like, we'll take a shot. Maybe we'll do that. It's not going to yield the results that the NBA wants in terms of we want more homegrown teams to run this league. It's a response to getting rid of super teams, which were already kind of going by the wayside. Teams that don't draft well and just use free agency and get these big stars and use free agency and buyout markets to fill out the rest. I'm looking at you, bubble Lakers. I'm looking at you, Clippers. I'm looking at you, old OKC to some degree when they had Paul George. It's those are already fizzling out. The market has gotten rid of those. Miami has completely changed the way its franchise is run. And has it had a dynasty like they did with LeBron, the back-to-back titles? No. They've been to a couple finals. They're close. And they've been doing that the right way. And now the NBA says we don't really care about doing it the right way anymore. So Celtics and Knicks and those kinds of teams that have developed stars but have put a lot of money into other guys externally, it's not going to work that way anymore. And personally, I find it too bad. Because even if you do, this is where the dynasty goes away. Because even if you do it the right way, let's say Oklahoma City gets a title in the next year or two before the apron stuff kicks in. And they've done it the right way. But we see it every year. These guys, these role players, their price goes up after winning a championship. Derek White, the latest example. He's a big contributor to the Celtics team. After they win the title, he signs for 4 years and $118 million. Like, that's what's going to happen to the other Jalen Williams and Alex Caruso and Harkenstein when he gets up for another contract. That's you won a title. That's what happens. That's what just happened to Kentavious Caldwell-Pope. You know, the Mavs just went to the finals, and Derek Jones, who was a vet min guy, gets $10 million a year now. So that's what you're looking at, NBA. A new champion every year, which to some degree is great. You know what I mean? But what it's going to become is the teams that can sustain it for years and years, much like the NFL, are going to be the ones who have stars who will take a pay cut. And that has to be radically different in the NBA because that has never happened. Never. We've had plenty of examples of it in the NFL. It's not everybody. Tom Brady, Patrick Mahomes even at this point is starting to. Peyton Manning did. It happens. And that's why those teams won. The NBA, there is no precedent for that. None. Because it's been a growing league the last 40 years. Why take less money? It's a league that embraces the star system so much, and yet now the stars need to take pay cuts. Not the worst thing, but the thing that made the NBA, what makes it, in a way, really compelling is its stars and its dynasties and the teams you're almost rooting for to lose. The highest rated NBA series in the last 4 years was a second round series 2 years ago because it was between the Warriors and the Lakers, LeBron and Curry. More higher rated than the finals that year. So that's what draws the interest to this game and to this league, is that you are always comparing players. You are always comparing teams. You are always comparing dynasties. It is a measuring stick for what makes greatness in this league. And for the foreseeable future, you will not have that anymore. So RIP the dynasty. A lot of us loved you. A lot more of us hated you. But it kept people showing up. It's too bad we won't have that anymore.
We are Rogue Media Sports.